What is going on, everybody? It is Dylan with DFS, and in today's video, I'm going over Week 4's cash plays. So this is just, player pools to really target in cash, kind of where ownership is at, to just give you guys an example. If you're not following or you're just kind of uncertain, just kind of going where I'm looking at in cash and kind of where the ownership is as well. So couple plays at quarterback. For the most part, it's cheaper. You get Caleb Williams at 5,800. That game, whether you want to go Caleb Williams or whether you want to pay down 400 more and get Geno Smith, that's a popular game this week. Drake May at 5,500 is also interesting. He's got the rushing upside. He's still cheap. I've continued to mention that Drake May and Daniel Jones are two quarterbacks that are just too cheap. They should be at the high 5,000, low 6,000 range consistently to make them kind of questionable whether you want to play them or not. When they're at this mid 5K or lower, which it have been, I think they're both playable. And these four are pretty much cash. The only other quarterback I would consider for cash, and this is more of a safety net, is Josh Allen, 7,700 at New Orleans. These games scare people, and like, I'm scared too for that fact, right? Buffalo should win by a lot, right? They're favored by over 2 touchdowns, which is not a common theme we see a lot during an NFL season. We see this maybe a handful of times a season. So we get one of those games, and it's just hard to tell, right? Josh Allen is expensive. James Cook is expensive. The Buffalo receivers, tight ends are all cheap, but who do you play, right? Who do you take that risk on? And for the most part, it's not usually worth it in cash. But I think Josh Allen, for his price point, he's been a pretty good fantasy quarterback, right? We see the week 1 stuff. Granted, this is what scares people, though, right? Against the Jets, they win really convincingly. Josh Allen, 14 for 25, 148 yards. Gets you rushing, but no touchdowns at all, right? That's the game that James Cook goes off. So that is the concern with Josh Allen, but I think he's still in a really good safe spot. You look at what Sam Darnold in Seattle did. Ken Walker, had a good game against them. Maybe this is the James Cook spot, but I think Josh Allen is that kind of safety net in this slate. Versus down here, you're getting a lot of mixed ownership between Caleb Williams, Daniel Jones, Drake May, Geno. And we are starting to see an uptick in Marcus Mariota for cash. He's 5,000, so he's not the stone min, but he is 5,000 without Terry McLaurin. We already know that is confirmed. AJ Terrell is out for Atlanta, so that is a plus for Washington. I will mention this, and I will mention him in tournaments as well, because I think he's more of a tournament play, but yet again, he is growing. DFS players so far this season have been blessed with cheap quarterbacks. A lot of injuries, which has opened it up, but this time is a benching. So we get Jackson Dart at 4,500 at home against the Chargers. It's a really, really tough matchup, though, for him. He has the rushing upside. We've seen it. That's what they've used him in. So I have to mention in cash because he's starting to grow a little bit in ownership, it seems. But I think he is more of a tournament play, so he'll be talked about again in tomorrow's video. Moving on to running backs. Yes, I mentioned like Christian McCaffrey's 8,500 in the first look. And with Juwan Jennings, it's very questionable whether he's going to play or not. He was limited today. Ricky Pearsall was limited, but I figure we see Ricky Pearsall. Brock Purdy, we might see some Brock Purdy. We'll see what that looks like. But yet again, Christian McCaffrey's just going to be owned, right? And it's pretty hard to fade someone like Christian McCaffrey. He's been a pretty consistent fantasy outlook, right? Now, when you consider the price point, this is the highest he's been. He's up $1,200. We mentioned it week 1, but he was very cheap at $7,300. Now we're starting to get to that price point of when is too much, right? 15 targets is just outrageous. I will mention that, but yes, he's a heavy volume machine. He always will be as long as he's healthy in a Shanahan offense. So Christian McCaffrey in cash, yes. Jonathan Taylor at 7,500. This one I'm not as sold on, right? I got burnt the last week really bad. I got burnt by Jonathan Taylor. He had an amazing game. It helped our FanDuel, player pool a lot. So that was good on FanDuel. On DraftKings, though, I personally did not play him. We're getting Jonathan Taylor at a more expensive price and in a tough matchup. So I like Jonathan Taylor, though. I'm probably not going to be as high as others on him in cash. You get someone like James Cook who's $400 cheaper. Now, here's the issue with James Cook, right? They're favored by over 2 scores. We saw it against the Jets where he has an amazing game, 130 yards, gets you 2 touchdowns on the ground, and gets you 29 fantasy points. This could be another game like that. This could be a game where Buffalo uses some of their backup running backs, right? Where they go, hey, we got a 2-touchdown lead. Let's not overuse James Cook, right? Not saying that that would be the case, but we've seen some instances to where teams take a lead. You get someone like James Cook, who's very important to this offense, right? We've seen Ray Davis. He looks good in this offense as well, but James Cook is, I mean, he's a big part of this offense. He's why Josh Allen doesn't have to throw all that much, is because James Cook and that offensive line are very good running the ball. So James Cook for cash, yes, I like it. Bucky Irving at 6,900. This one is also a popular play with, I doubt we get Godwin. Mike Evans out. I mean, Ibuka's still kind of banged up too at that. Tampa Bay, the thing with that, their offensive line is also banged up. So there's some worries with Bucky. I'd rather pay down for 6,200 Ashton Jeanty against my Bears. This one is I think this is where we start to get Ashton Jeanty at a reasonable price. I mentioned this week after week after week. He's just too expensive, right? He's too expensive for a rookie running back that is not that dual threat back yet. He is a ground and pound guy. Their offensive line has been getting slammed. Bears defense is, unfortunately for me, banged up. But Ashton Jeanty, we're getting him at the cheapest price we've seen him so far at home. You want to have some type of exposure in the Chicago-Vegas game. Some type of exposure. And if you want to get different and you don't want to play Vegas's offense for some reason, Genty's a good piece. He's 6,200 for a running back. Although the issue with that is you get a cash play in Omarion Hampton at 5,900. So I kind of think for the price point, granted, leverage, we don't want to usually pay up. But that's a different route you could take if you don't want to go for someone like Omarion Hampton, who's 5,900, who's going to be very highly owned on the slate with Najee Harris, right? That's the other running back we're going to talk about. But Najee Harris already gone for the season. We saw him last week once he got the work. I mean, Omarion Hampton put out a fantasy game which people were waiting for. And when I say wait for, I don't mean like, oh, we've been waiting for a year or something like that. But it was nice to see him, right, week 1 against the Chargers. He gets Kansas City, he gets 15 carries against a very good run offense. Doesn't really get utilized in the pass game where we know he can be a threat as well. We see it against another division opponent in Denver, who's also really good defense, and we see him get utilized a little more in the passing game, and does get a touchdown. So Omarion Hampton at 5,900 is a cash play. And then 5,500 in the same game as Cam Skattebo against the Chargers with Jackson Dart as a starting quarterback. And this one is kind of tough because Jackson Dart's at a cheap price at 4,500. Cam Skattebo's at a cheap price at 5,500. You can't play both. In my opinion, you can't play both in cash. In tournaments, if you want to go that route, go that route. I'm okay with that in cash. It's very risky to take both of these guys to succeed. I could easily see one of these guys definitely hitting their value based off their price. But Cam Skattebo is kind of the value play at running back right now unless something pops up down here. But Cam Skattebo is pretty much that cheap cash play. So that's it for cash. It's, Skattebo, it's Omarion Hampton. I will mention Jeanty, though, James Cook, Jonathan Taylor, and CMC. Moving on to wide receiver, Puka Nacua at 7,900, definitely a cash play. Moore's out for Indy. That's a huge blow. That's a huge plus for someone like Puka Nacua. Devontae Adams has been dealing with some injury issues this week. We'll see what that looks like. I believe Adams is going to play. I think they're just being a little cautious with it. But Puka Nacua at 7,900, I think, is in a really, really good spot for cash. We go cheaper, and it's where we're going to have a lot of these plays. Rome Odunze 6,300, yet again, is a cash play. He's still cheap, right? Like, we see someone like Emeka Ibuka, who's priced at 6,800, and Rome Odunze's down here at 6,300, and Rome's had a really good fantasy season, especially for his price point, right? We're getting him at the highest we've gotten him, obviously for 1,000 more than he was last week, but he's got a really good matchup against Vegas, so at 6,300, he's a very good stacking piece, yet again, to put with Caleb Williams. One name I will mention is Deebo Samuel against Atlanta. This one, I mean, for ownership, he's not going to get a lot of ownership, but with Terry McLaurin out, I kind of like the Deebo Samuel route in this one, right? Atlanta's, I would say, a better defense than Vegas, but after what we saw last week, not so much. But with someone like AJ Terrell out, the usage that Deebo Samuel's going to get. I don't think the Washington run game is going to be as efficient as it was. So I like Deebo Samuel. He's at a cheap price point at 6K, so I do like the discount we kind of get out of him, just because he had a underwhelming performance in a 40-point Washington scoring game. We continue to go down, and we get some names out here, right? And they're all pretty much in this same price point. We get Ted McMillan at $5,900 against New England. He's just going to be the number one receiver. I continue to mention it. The number one receiver for Carolina. He's cheap. He should definitely be in this $6,200 to $6,300 price range. I think that is kind of the fair price that you want Ted at, to be like, hey, do we play him this week? Do we fade him? That type of thing. If he's under 6K, he's still playable. I get it's New England. Their defense can be scary, but they still haven't shown us enough to be, what a Mike Vrabel defense can be. So until then, Ted McMillan is playable this week. Xavier Worthy's interesting. I'm not sold on Xavier Worthy. He's more of a tournament play, but I've seen quite a bit of mentioning of him lately. Drake London's $100 cheaper, so that's where I'm going Drake London over Xavier Worthy in this matchup. At $5,700, we just need Michael Penix to play good football. That's what we truly need. And when it happens, Drake London is going to be a monster again. Until then, it is risky. But first price point at $5,700 for the production and some of the outcomes that we've seen Drake London, this is a very cheap price for him. Ricky Pearsall, if Juwan Jennings is out, he gets thrown in that cash pool. So that's just one to watch until then. We go a little cheaper here. Jacoby Myers at $5,400 against the Bears. This is a really good stacking piece if you're going Geno, is to get a reliable receiver for Vegas. Although we only seen him get 4 targets last week against Washington, he was still kind of productive for a 4-target game where he hit pretty much that average that he gets for receiving yards. But the 2 weeks prior, we saw 12 and 10 targets. Trey Tucker had an amazing game. I'm so happy for him. But Jacoby Myers is in a really good spot at $5,400 against the Bears. We keep going down, and we get some of these cheap prices as well. Keenan Allen, yet again, is being targeted for cash. It is pretty hard to not want to play Keenan Allen in a positive matchup for him. We've seen some tough matchups against Kansas City, against Denver, and Keenan Allen has still come up on top. He's getting a touchdown every game, seeing the consistent targets, seeing the consistent yardage. At his price point for what he's producing, he is very cheap. So Keenan Allen yet again in the cash pool. Chris Olave at $5,100. I mentioned him for the last 2 weeks. In last week, he kind of paid off at his price point, but not like crazy. But he got 10 receptions, right? Only 57 yards, which is terrible. For a wide receiver to get 14 targets, catch 10 of them, and only get 57 yards, that's pretty unrealistic. It is also unrealistic the amount of targets that Olave is getting. But if you're playing into the narrative that Buffalo is going to take a big lead, New Orleans is going to be losing, that means Chris Olave is going to be yet again getting the ball thrown to him a lot. So definitely playable at $5,100. Other than that, we get a lot of tournament plays. So a lot of these names, there are some names in here I really, really like for the slate, but none for cash. I think Chris Olave is pretty much it for the cheap price. The only other name I would sort of mention, and it's just a stacking piece. It's just purely a stacking piece. If you wanted to pay up for someone like Brock Bowers, is Trey Tucker, but we're getting Trey Tucker at a pretty steep price, but he's gotten 2 10-plus point performances so far this season, which is really good considering his price point was at $3,400 at the highest, but he is $4,200 now, so we're not getting that crazy value. But just as a stacking piece, I don't think you need to get there in cash. Tight end, it's pretty simple for me. There's just a few names. Brock Bowers against the Bears. Bears have been pretty bad against tight ends. They're still dealing with some linebacker injuries right now, so Brock Bowers I think is in a good spot. Tyler Warren for cheaper, $1,200 cheaper, I think is in a really good spot, where I mentioned that I think it's a tougher matchup for Jonathan Taylor. Tyler Warren kind of got, he didn't need to be used. He truly didn't need to be used against the Titans last week. Only saw 5 targets for 38 yards, so has yet to score, but I think it's a really good game script for him against the Rams. And then we go cheaper, and we're getting yet again to this tier. So Zach Ertz at $4,100 and Hunter Henry at $4,000. The thing with Hunter Henry, and I mentioned if you missed some of the last week content, I mentioned it with Hunter Henry, and I will mention it again. You have to be cautious with Hunter Henry all season. He's one of the true players of boom or bust. When you're paying a $4,000 price tag, it's not as bad for those busts to happen because you get some of these outcomes where he gets you. I'm not saying 29 points, but he's going to have some of these games where he gets you 12-ish points and should be at around a 4K price tag, right? We're probably going to see a little cheaper, but we're going to see him get some of these games where New England wins and he does not get used. We see some games where they lose, and I mean, he's getting included a lot more, right? It's very uncertain, right? Austin Hooper gets some opportunities in there. One of the last names I will mention for a cheap price for cash is, if Loveland's out, Cole Kmet at 3,000 I think is in an interesting spot against Vegas. Defense, I always mention this. Defense, I truly really don't care as much. I always prefer to get a cheaper defense. I hate paying up for a defense and they get under 5 points. That really, really stings the rest of the lineup where you're hoping for some of that higher potential. So this week, obviously the Bills at 3,700. You're paying a very heavy price though at 3,700. The Texans at 3,400 against Tennessee. It's worth mentioning. And then we're pretty much going to a cheaper spot. Two names. Jacksonville at 2,500, right? They've just performed fairly well so far this season. A lot of turnovers this defense has caused. But at 2,500 for just some of the performances they've had this season, it's got to be worth mentioning. Granted, you are getting a Christian McCaffrey, a Ricky Pearsall, possibly a Brock Purdy. We'll see if he is officially good to go. But they're still banged up, right? Ricky Pearsall has not been a fully healthy guy this week so far. If Juwan plays, same thing. Brock Purdy possibly coming back from an injury. So I don't love it, but yet again, this is defense we're talking about. If a defense at 23 to 2,500 gets me above 3 points, and if they get above 5 points, I'm happy, right? If they for some way get over 10, I'm in a great spot paying this price point. I just hate paying up for a defense and they don't produce where you're hoping they get you at least 10 points for that price point you're paying. So it's kind of where I'm at. Yet again, I will have all my tournaments and players that I'm looking at in tournaments and games I'm stacking in tournaments. That video will be going out tomorrow night. So if you guys are interested in that, check that one out. I will see you guys in the next one.